Hello friends, and welcome back to Random Hearts. Today we're in the backyard and we are going to take a garden tour. It's been a little over a month since I've taken you around and a lot has changed. And from our last video where we showed a bunch of hail damage, you're going to see how resilient plants are and how quickly they can rebound. But we are going to take an evening tour of the garden tonight. It is late afternoon, heading into evening. I want to try to get this done before our sprinklers go off in the garden beds, and that happens about 7 o'clock. So I want to get this done before it gets too late, but I still want you to see what our yard looks like in the late evening and early afternoon hours. So let's take a tour. So this is what these grow bags looked like on June 22nd, one day after our huge hailstorm. You can see they're pretty much decimated. There was nothing left to them except for a couple of stems, maybe a few leaves. I also took pictures on July 14th, and this is what they looked like at that point. Definitely growing back, doing well. And this is what they look like today. They look amazing. You can see we've got a ton of growth on these tomatoes. We actually have tomatoes on both plants in both bags, quite a few on this one. And we are getting a ton of jalapeno peppers. We're also getting some regular peppers, some bell peppers, and I've harvested a lot of basil off of these plants. So this is just a testament of how well plants can bounce back after something as horrifying as a hailstorm that nearly demolished them. But I'm very pleased with how this is looking and couldn't be happier with the results. As I spin around here from the tomatoes, we are going to see the maple tree that we purchased to replace the maple, and then later decided that we will be putting this in the front yard. We haven't had any time to put it in yet, so here it sits. It is on drip, and I am supplementing it with water almost daily right now because we have had temperatures in the mid-90s for almost 2 weeks now. And all of my herbs are doing pretty well. I did harvest off of this basil just recently. I also dehydrated some mint and some thyme. And we are just about done with parsley. And the cilantro has definitely bolted. But we will be harvesting some of the coriander seeds off of that once they are ready. Dill is finished as well, but I just can't bear to get rid of it. It looks beautiful. And then, of course, our rosemary. This is my herb section. I do love it underneath this apple tree because it is shaded for the most part. Gets some dappled shade, but also gets the heat from the concrete. So this is one of my favorite places to put my herbs. Over in this section right here under the apple tree, you'll see that we've got a couple of new perennials in here. I've got a blanket flower over here, a yellow one, and I'm hoping it makes it. It is a zone 5, and because we were moved to a zone 5 last year, it is a little bit scary for me to plant that, but we'll see how that goes. And down here I've got some annuals doing quite well, and that is this section under the apple tree. You'll also notice that this wagon right here has pretty much the same flowers as last year, but I did change up the order in which they were put into the wagon. I also changed the petunias for a larger petunia. I think last year I had a super bell in there, and so that definitely did not do well. But I also added some Dusty Miller to that wagon this year, and it looks really good. This bed right here does need a little bit of maintenance. The Nepeta in the bed, I never got a chance to cut it back, and we've got new blooms flushing out over the top of the old ones. I don't mind that, but some people do. It doesn't bother me at all. But you can see that these planters up here on the patio have done very well. Very happy with them. That is actually one supertunia in that pot and it has taken over. But this is all looking pretty good, except for I do think I need to do some overhauling in this bed. I did mention it last year that my Stella d'Oro daylilies seem to be needing to be divided, and I definitely think they do. They hardly bloomed at all this year, but that is partly because of our hail damage. This is damage from hail right here. We got quite a lot of it on these particular plants, and of course they were ready to bloom. They had bloom stalks when the hail hit, and that took out quite a few of those bloom stalks. So I probably need to do some work in this bed right here and the one in front of the deck. And you can see our Russian sage is starting to bloom as well. I love the combination of the Dusty Miller with the Russian sage, so I like to keep that in there. And the wind is starting to pick up, so I hope that's not messing with my audio much. But just going to let you look around, see how everything's doing here. It looks wonderful. And of course, we're coming out of a very, very hot day. It is still currently 94 degrees outside, and that's pretty hot for us here in Wyoming. But that is what this bed around the patio is looking like. And I'm just going to flip around and we'll show you the bed on the other side. Now, this is not my favorite area of the yard to look at, but I thought that I always show the pretty parts, but I never show the working parts. This right here, we are working on trying to find a solution for our tiller and our mower. And we also are looking to find some solutions for a permanent deer fence, because this is temporary and it has helped to curb the deer coming into the yard, but it has not completely stopped them from trying. So we will have to find something a little more permanent, and the gravel here is a project that goes around the garden beds, but we just haven't gotten a chance to get to it. So as I pan over into this section right here, this is probably one of my favorite sections of the yard just because of the amount of color in here. And I love how this looks, especially during the daytime when the sun is on it. So this is not the best time of day for it. But under this Canadian red chokecherry here, we have got 3 new shrubs. This one right here is a barberry. I cannot remember its name, so I will put it on the screen. We've also got a 9 bark back here and a dwarf burning bush. They all seem to be doing pretty well, but I do wonder if they will continue to do well once this tree grows up a little and starts shading them a little more. But all of these zinnias right here are just glorious. I have been so pleased with how they've done this year, and so happy with my placement and color blocking. They just flow together. The colors work so well. And these were all grown from seed. I started them indoors in, I believe, May. I'll fix that on the screen if that was wrong. But all of these were started indoors from seed, and I am super happy with how they've done. You'll see right here, my favorite flower, the Zowie Yellow Flame. I don't have very many of them, and that is because I forgot to order seed last year, and that is all I had left. So they're already on my list of things to buy for next year. But you can see I have a couple of annuals in here, and then I also have a sunflower here. These are the branching sunflowers. I did decide to finish up the seed on them, and I remember now why I didn't like them very well, and that is because they take forever to grow. They just take a long time, and they're not as prolific as the ProCut Horizon variety I planted last year. So that is everything in this section. I guess I should pan around and show you the fire pit so you can see where that is located. This is an area we love to sit in the evening hours. It's shaded. You can see the sun is not hitting it very much anymore, even though it's hitting some of the rest of the yard. And we love to have fires here, have a drink or two, and sometimes we even roast s'mores. But this is one of our favorite spots to sit in the late evening hours. As I move up into this section here, you'll see we still do not have the bridge in or any of the pavers, stepping stones around the garden beds. That is because my husband has been working some extra days at work and he has not had the time to work on any of the projects around the house. But I'm going to pan up here onto the deck of the shed real quick so you can see what is going on up here. I have 3 planters back here in this corner. One is a fairy garden that is completely shrouded by a supertunia. And then the others are doing super well, of course. And then I've got 2 planters on this side that are also doing super well. But I do have some plants in here that are kind of being swallowed up. I have a lobelia in here and you can't even see it. So even though they're beautiful and gorgeous, some of the plants that are in these pots just are not as prolific and as strong as some of the others. But over in this area on the other side of the shed's deck is the nitty-gritty and working area for this section of the garden. These right here are all bags of bark that are going to replace the large bark up underneath the trees. I just haven't gotten to that project. And then of course these bins and garbage cans over here house a lot of our fertilizers, our straw, soil, things like that. And as I pan into this section, you're going to see one of my garden beds, and this one looks pretty empty right now, but I do have plans to redo some spinach here in about 2 weeks, and maybe even some radishes. This right here was completely full of lettuce, but we've been eating about 2 heads of lettuce a day because it is ready to harvest. And then of course all of my snap peas here, you can see I've got quite a few on here, and I even harvested some this morning, so doing well. This might not be the best time of day to do the garden tour because I'm going to get shadow and you're getting a lot of glare. But we've got strawberries going right here. I have harvested the chives 3 times already, dehydrated almost a pint of them. And I'm about to come in, just cut them out and offer them to friends. This right here are some green beans. We've got 2 different varieties in here. We've got some jade green beans and some amethyst, and I did harvest some of those this morning. And I've got some frontier onions. These are bulb onions down here. They're doing okay, but they've got a lot of shade right now because of the green beans, and so I don't know if they're getting enough light. Over here in this bed, I've got some more frontier onions and a second seeding of jade, green beans, and amethyst. And these 3 right here are seeds I collected from a Blue Lake variety I grew 2 years ago, and they came up. I've also got some beets back here in this section, 2 different varieties of beets. And then of course I've got some bell peppers here, and they are just about ready to harvest. Each plant has 1. And then these are the sweetie tomatoes. And I ran out of tomato cages this year, so these are just on a stake. And I definitely need to do something different with those next year. Up here you can see I've got my hanging baskets that I always hang on the wall. They're doing very well. They both have a Dusty Miller on the back side. That doesn't show up super well this time of day because it's nearly the same color as the fence, but looking really good. In this section right here, I've got more tomatoes. In fact, this entire bed is full of tomatoes and peppers and marigolds. I've got 3 different varieties of tomatoes in here. These right here are the Mountain Magic, and I've got a lot of tomatoes on both plants. And then this variety right here is a new one for me. I cannot remember the name, but they are a golden teardropped tomato. So they're going to be a sweet tomato snacking size. And then these right here are the New Girl tomatoes. And all of them are doing very well considering what they looked like just about a month and 2 weeks ago after that hailstorm. So doing great. And of course I've got peppers down here. I just harvested a pepper off of one of these this morning. These are bell peppers. And then on the other side, I've got more of the jalapenos. This bed right here, I've got onions in. And I can't remember what I've got sitting here, so I'll have to look at the plant tag, put that on your screen. But these I did not start from seed. I bought the starts to them. And then I've got a whole bunch of carrots here. Not doing anything yet except for beautiful foliage on the top. And then I've got another set of onions right here. And I think these are the candy onions. Yes, candy yellow. So that means these right here were the Walla Walla. And you can see I'm getting some pretty good sized bulbs under the ground there. They just need to make it a few more months. And I think we will have no problem with that. I'm going to get my shadow here for a second. But I wanted to show you what's going on with my cabbage. I've got Omero red cabbage right here doing very well. In fact, I was about ready to harvest one of the heads the other day for some fish tacos. But these right here are a green cabbage, and they have been nothing but a magnet for the bugs. And sometimes you need a host plant like that to take care of what your garden is needing. And I've just let them go. Even though they're not going to be edible for us, I've just let them be because the bugs are leaving our Omero reds alone, and that's all I care about at this point. Now, as this evening is progressing, we are getting a little more traffic on the street in front of us, and a neighbor is being a little bit loud with their music, so hopefully you cannot hear that. But this is what the yard looks like in the late afternoon as the sun is starting to go down. And it's still fairly high, but it's shrouded by our neighbor's house and the trees over here. And it just makes it very pleasant to be out in our backyard at this time of day. I am going to insert some footage right here of what it looks like about 2 hours from now when the lights in the pergola start to turn on. We have no electricity out here. We have one power outlet. And so the lights in our pergola area are all solar. They were solar path lights that we put onto our pergola with zip ties. It's just a peaceful area, and we love being out here in the evenings. So you've already seen this bed right here. This is underneath our apple tree. This is a spring snow crab apple, so it does not have any fruit. It is sterile. I've got 2 more tomato plants right here. These are a red cherry tomato, and I'm actually about ready to harvest one of the tomatoes. This will be the first tomato coming out of the garden this year. But again, these struggled with the hail damage just like everything else in the yard, and look at how well they have bounced back. Over here, I've got the same issue that I had on the other side with the Stella d'Oro daylilies that really need to be either split or moved. They're just kind of taking over and doing little to nothing in these beds. I do have a couple of flowers right here on this one, but I've had a few flowers here and there, but nothing spectacular, and I just think it's time to divide those. I did not mention in the other bed, but I do have 3 new Veronica in the garden. I've got 2 of them over here and 1 of them in the opposite bed on the other side by the patio. And that is what is happening there. We'll see if those can grow. I've never grown Veronica before, so I don't know what to expect there. But in this section right here, you can see we are still struggling with our maple tree. We are going to have to get up there and cut some of those branches out. We already cut one out, and it was definitely dead. It was brittle and very tough wood, so it did die. So we're hoping that this will make it through the winter. Right here I've got 3 more of those Romero red cabbage, some more repeats of the annuals from the bed underneath the apple tree, and all of the marigolds in my yard I planted from seed. So doing very well. This is my favorite marigold right here. These are the Queen Sophias, and they're just gorgeous. I love their varying colors of orange and red. The daisies over here are still taking a big precedence in this area and basically stealing the show. But every day I'm having to come in and do some deadheading because they are getting close to being done. Back here in the far back, I have a lilac that is doing a fall bloom or an end of season bloom, which is always very nice. And again, I've got some of the lemon coral sedum here. It's very yellow because it is getting quite a lot of light because the tree is not shadowing it very much. And right here, you're gonna see I've got a 9-bark. I didn't mention this in the last video, but I pruned that accidentally this spring all the way to the ground thinking it was another plant, and it bounced back beautifully. Behind that plant, you can see I have some white finch orlea that is just barely coming out of bloom, and I'm going to leave those seed pods because they are just gorgeous. Everything else in this bed looks great, but it's kind of getting to the point where it's done blooming and just getting ready for fall. We actually will start cooling down pretty heavily at night, and that will trigger a lot of our plants to start changing their foliage color. My hydrangeas, and those have a couple of blooms on them, not as good as last year, but doing very well. This plant right here just suffered from that hail. You can see lots of damage on it, and it is going to come out of it, but it's just not doing super well underneath. So I will trim all that back this fall and give it a good boost for next spring. Up here we've got our Globe arborvitaes. Those Globe arborvitaes don't look like they're doing much, but they are actually putting on quite a bit of growth. I looked at a previous video where we had planted them and they look really good. They've got nice vibrant color, looking great. And this is a section right here that needs to be, the bark needs to be removed. This is the only section where we have large bark, and this section all the way across needs that bark removed. Under our plum here, that is part of that section, and then as we pan around, this right here has no bark underneath it, and then again large bark. So we're going to move all the way back to the small nuggets like we have in the rest of these beds. So that just needs to be removed before the end of the season. This right here is my daylilies, and I wanted to capture this today because I had the most blooms today on these. They just look amazing. And not only that, but we still have some lavender blooming over here. We still have some gypsophilia blooming and daisies, and just about ready to have just a beautiful show of flowers back here. I'm loving the oranges and the pinks this year. I don't know why I gravitated to those colors, but they look so good together. Up here underneath our elm tree, we do have a couple of new flowers up at the top. We did put in some more perennials up there. Some of them are ground cover, and it all looks really good. very healthy. The astilbe on the end here did bloom, and they seem to be doing okay. I was a little concerned with them last year after I planted them, but they did quite well. So that is that section of the garden. Now as I pan back, you're going to see the sun poking through there. That is our plum tree. There are just a few plums on it. Most of them have been picked off by the birds or have dropped. And then this section right here, this was all redone last year with the small bark, and it looks so much better because of it. We've got a couple of barberries in here, actually 3 of them, a Russian sage, a Black Hill spruce back here, which is getting quite large and filling in this area very well, and then a potentilla, and of course our aspen tree, which is a beautiful shade tree, but it's causing problems with our wall. You can see right there, we've got a root that's trying to pop through it down at the bottom that's making a mess. And if you look very closely at our lawn, you'll see we have lots of aspen trees popping up all over the place. Between the aspens and the elms, that's all we do is pull trees. Well, friends, we have come to the end of our garden tour for the month of August. This is a great reminder of how resilient plants are in our world. And even though we had hail a little over a month ago that was very damaging to our garden, it has bounced back very nicely. And we have to call this quits tonight because the sprinklers are on, and this entire area in front of me and behind me is now going to get soaked for the next hour. And that's how we keep things alive here, is we pour the water on them in the evening and in the mornings. The lawn gets sprinkled in the mornings and the garden beds in the evenings, and that seems to be a good way to keep everything alive here. So we hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions or comments, leave those in the comment section down below. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. We hope you're having a lovely day wherever you are, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.